War. What is it good for, right? War tends to bring out this obsessive need to create something better. With using new technology to solve problems, you can often come across unexpected results. Some inventions can be life-changing, just like these 10 inventions made during wars. At number 10, we have margarine. We can thank Napoleon III for this invention. Margarine was invented when Napoleon needed a butter substitute to feed his soldiers and also the poor in his empire, due to the fact that butter was expensive. He offered a prize to the person that would come up with a butter substitute for his army. Napoleon was then presented with margarine. It tasted like butter, it was cheap and spreadable, but at the time it wasn't popular. The creator later sold it to a Dutch butter making company, where margarine took off. Number 9. Canned food. Canned foods such as peas and other vegetables were created by Nicholas Apparent. In the late 18th century, when Napoleon Bonaparte offered a prize to anyone who would come up with a way to successfully preserve food. Apparently, when he wasn't invading Russia during the war, Napoleon liked staging random food contests. Napoleon needed a way to send food across the globe to French armies, but the food was not preserved for long enough. Napoleon held another contest to find a better way of preserving food. Apparent won with his idea of using glass jars and heating them with boiled water. Number 8. Silly putty. Silly putty was created accidentally during World War II. There were a number of resources that were in short supply. One was rubber. The US military needed a substitute at a lower cost for tyres, boots and gas masks. Silly putty was made of boric acid and silicone oil. While being useless for the uses of rubber, it can bounce and stretch. It later became a massive hit with the children, just like today. And guess what? It was even taken to space during Apollo 8. Number 7. The SLINKY. It was created by an engineer called Richard James. He was working on a system that would be used to stabilize and support sensitive equipment on board ships in rough seas during the war. The box contained a tension spring. One day he picked up the box and noticed that the spring would move. It looked as if it was walking. And so the SLINKY was born. James and his wife saw potential of the SLINKY as a children's toy and began to market that way. At number 6 we have the jerry can. The jerry can was a German invention in World War II. The Germans called it a long and complicated name. They saw the importance of being able to carry fuel and water during World War II. These jerry cans turned out to be far superior to their Allied counterparts. They were robust, durable and easy to transport. The original design featured an X on each side, allowing room for expansion and adding strength to the structure. On the top of the can there were 3 handles, making it easier to pass it from one person to another, and also allowing 2 cans to be carried side by side in one hand. Number 5. The microwave. The potential of microwaves was realised by a man named Percy Spencer. Spencer was researching into radar technology. Spencer was working on magnetrons one day when he noticed that a chocolate bar within his pocket started to melt. After more experimentation, Spencer realised that this microwave technology could be concentrated to cook food quicker than a normal oven. The first microwave ever made was in 1947. It was expensive, big, and very unpopular. Later on it was redesigned and it became smaller, cheaper, and more popular. At number 4 we have radar systems. The initial idea of radar was around way before World War II, but it was created by Robert Watson Watt. He developed the technology when a series of radar-related discoveries allowed him to do so. He developed on these discoveries and later uncovered that he could track objects over 100 miles away using radio transmitters. He presented his invention to the RAF and it was quickly used to detect oncoming threat and how severe it would be. The enemies no longer had the element of surprise. Number 3. Sanitary pads. Without wars, the beloved disposable sanitary pads may never have been created. Although throughout history, menstrual pads have been used and made from various materials like cotton and fur, it wasn't until World War I that nurses in France realised that the bandages that they were using on injured soldiers could be used for a more personal use. These absorbent bandages became popular with nurses because they were readily available, much more absorbent, and cheap, which meant that the bandages could be simply thrown away when they were no longer useful. The Kimberly-Clark Corporation that supplied the bandages to the nurses during the war was left with a surplus of bandaging after World War I and used the nurse's idea to create the first ever disposable pads. Number 2. Superglue. Superglue was created in 1942 and was an accidental invention created by Harry Coover. Coover's intentions were to create a clear plastic gun sight to use on rifles. During his research, he stumbled across the formula used for superglue. Coover threw it aside because he saw it as useless. After many years, the formula was rediscovered. Realizing the potential, Coover's invention went on to be used to seal wounds of injured soldiers during the Vietnam War until they were able to reach a hospital. Finally, at number 1, we have duct tape. It was created in World War II after US military needed a way to safely seal ammunition cases. It was created by a division within the Johnson & Johnson company who used medical tape as a backbone. They altered the tape to make it durable and waterproof. Using a rubber adhesive, they were able to create a waterproof coating. Soldiers referred to it as duct tape because the water would simply just roll off it. Nowadays, duct tape is considered as a household essential for repairing things such as air conditioning ducts.